capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number? Or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know, Zach.
It's a tough one. I know.
Really hard.
And maybe comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. Tonight we are going to be continuing on in our series on utopias. Now we're getting more into the practical theory side of things, some ideas that can be used for organizing strategies. Joining me, as usual, is Dan Platt of the Three Left Show and What's Left in Albany. How you doing tonight, Dan?
Oh, I'm great. And what's left is winter in Albany is finally wrapping up. It's got to have a last hurrah.
Yeah.
And the next week it's all 40s. highs of 45.
That's
45.
nice. That's nice.
It's been a very, very warm winter here in New York. And
it's been pretty warm here too.
But you said it's been very snowy. But
warm and snowy, yeah.
But yeah, if it's just below freezing, you'll get snow. But the snow's been very heavy as well. So last weekend when it snowed just, I don't know, half a foot at most, it was like 4 inches. I didn't think it snowed a lot, but it was a lot of branches broke, a lot of power lines went down. So there were some blackouts. Just shows how unresilient our infrastructure is.
Oh yeah.
All the more reason to have it your power lines near the ground or underground
or buried.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have them on the ground, obviously they could break or whatever. But maybe you'd have to cover them, of course, and that's well.
Sure.
But yeah, or you have to trim all the tree branches around your power lines, and that's a lot of labor and work and material.
It
and
is.
Energy.
Indeed, it is. Yeah, that's the strategy around here. It's just trim, because we have lots of trees about. So, what kind of things are we going to be talking about tonight?
Well, we're finally going to cover Co-op Jackson. I've been holding that back too long because it's a longer video, but we're going to skip ahead. We're going to skip the background of Mississippi politics, radical politics in Mississippi. Can be researched separately. And we're going to start at it's the second video I've put in the chat.
Gotcha.
The first one is a playlist for another utopian scheme of a new economy, similar to the other things we've done on the series, but which I came across 8 years ago, but I wasn't too interested in it because I think Paracom is superior, but I didn't really investigate it because they weren't really putting a lot of detail into it. And that was a big, red flag. So, yeah. But it's interesting to kind of share these as well and talk them over. And then maybe I'll try to find a video of a, anti-utopian, utopian socialism bad kind of video made by a libertarian of sorts. Because if you type in leftist utopia, most of the videos you get are, we're all evil and want to, they're taking utopia books too seriously. It's sort of like it's a topic to continue later, but so let's talk Co-op Jackson. I have the book that's basically a book of essays about them, and
very cool.
So they're a large, long-running project, which they'll talk about themselves. You'll see a guy who was the keynote speaker at the Green Party convention last year. he's very bookable and well, high demand up for him because there's so much interest in Co-op Jackson as one of those models of community organizations that are building socialist economics or with the consciousness and not a false consciousness of your standard consumer co-op.
Cool.
But to try to tie a bunch of community projects together, maybe that's the best, maybe at least to say that's what it is. And I guess there's a caveat that they get Peter Buffett money, but I don't know how much. But maybe that's also come in recently. I mean, they've been going quite a while.
Yeah.
And they and it goes into kind of the way they've evolved. So it was not just a plan that they've been implementing. They've been kind of trying different things as well. I think in the background section, they mentioned, that the Black Panthers attempted to start a very large commune in the countryside, but the Alabama or the Mississippi sheriffs basically raided them, militarily speaking, like the old Klan would. So that didn't have a chance to actually, exist. Trying to do their own Black Hammer City,
Oh no.
but not and with actual
hopefully a little more organized
and with
and
actual
thoughtful.
and with actual experienced organizers.
Yeah, makes a difference.
Yeah, and it was called like the Malcolm X organization. So a co-founder of the Malcolm X grassroots movement. There we go. And there's a New Africa Party. So there's a little background with Africa spelled with a K, which is to refer to the Black diaspora or
Sure.
Black Americans, because it's like we're not Americans, we are new Africans, separate
Gotcha.
from old Africa, because we now have this totally different culture for the most part.
Right.
We're not going to go back.
Yeah.
We're going to start a new nation here. So there's some alternative histories, that you could get into where the South is actually this like independent Black republic. But that's if like slave revolts were successful or something.
Successful,
like
yeah.
that.
Sure. That's cool. All right. Well, let's take a look at Cooperation Jackson.
So this part is of the electoral politics.
Cool. So you're running a mayoral candidate. Elected mayor.
Chokwe's election was a major disruption to a concerted plan of gentrification. Folks knew him from his law practice, doing capital murder cases and cases that nobody else would take pro bono, and doing that for decades. He brought out 20,000 working class voters who don't normally show up. The initial strategy was we would get in office and then we would change the policy infrastructure within the city that would then enable a vehicle like Cooperation Jackson to be born. On the 24th February, Chokwe dies. I can remember being in office. I had talked to him earlier that day about a presentation. And I knew he was in the hospital.
Can you pause it?
Not a man who thought.
I know it just started, but this is sort of actually my thinking. Like when I run for office and so on, like my goals would be to pass a co-op law, make it easier to do these things at an institutional level.
Yeah,
but this
that's
didn't work in Jackson, though. Particularly, again, they just mentioned he died in office. They didn't really get to do the full program.
Didn't really get to roll it out. Yeah.
Now, there's in the battery of essays put out by Anarchist Press on a case against electoral politics. They actually mentioned an essay from a Co-op Jackson person talking about how they poured resources into elections. And they won because they really did mobilize working class people. But they weren't able to fully implement their program because of the higher levels, the county level and the state level, came down on them. And they were also, this is the perspective maybe of just the one writer, but they were spending a lot of resources electing and re-electing people instead of actually building the community projects they wanted to. But I think the way Akane is going to tell the story, like, because there's always different interpretations of events, that it was more like they did electoralism, and it didn't work out fully, of course. So they switched strategies to the grassroots, but or that will, you know, we build the base. You know, the elections and the office holders are our allies in building a base, but that wasn't sustainable, perhaps. But let's get the full story. I didn't actually watch all of this.
Okay.
His life was in danger. He was still working. So, you know, an entire movement just being kind of in shock, you know, like this was not in the plans. There was a special election. His son ran in that election. He lost by a thin margin. He was young, and he didn't have the track record that his father had. I think the other factor, we didn't do everything with a mass orientation, and that was a mistake. There was no explanation for certain decisions. They just happened. As far as most people are concerned, it was like, same old, same old. Y'all just like everybody else. If I had to do it all over again, I would have pushed more for us doing the solidarity economy work before getting into electoral politics. And I think in all honesty, we did the electoral politics because that's what we knew how to do. I think we should have gotten out of our comfort zone, build that base up, build a new set of transformative relationships up, and then went for that. We thought it was very important that we demonstrate first and foremost that the actual movement was not dependent solely on electoral politics and was definitely not dependent on one individual. Through the vehicle of the Jackson Rising Conference, which was held in May 2014, we put the basic core committee that created Cooperation Jackson from that theory, mind you, of the Jackson Kush Plan, and then tried to put that theory into practice. We are deliberately trying to make it as mass as possible to include particularly younger white workers who we are trying to draw and attract into our mix to work on developing the solidarity economy and then take that to the eastern portions of the state. Now, embedded in that was this notion of taking the solidarity economy, taking particularly co-ops, worker co-ops. There was a history of cooperative experiments in the city and in the region. Most of the black farmers only survived by having very formal cooperative structures.
So some of
Can you pause it?
the co-ops that we have are, the CAF.
So last week I wanted to cover some of the economy. I don't think we did a good job of that, but maybe we just did the basics. But it's simply made up of solidarity economy is basically having a community run and managed and owned version of the basic institutions of life, which is, housing, healthcare, food, basic production of household goods, perhaps. Not so much industrial scale yet, but to have the basics, so then you can move up.
Just to give people a floor to push off of.
Just to create the economic floor, right?
I like that a lot.
That the also known as equality of outcome, which
I mean, to a certain degree, there should be an equality of outcome, and that no one should just die for lack of
floor.
resources.
But that's what leftists like us mean when we use that phrase.
Yeah,
there's the meaning that, like, I guess in the mind of the reactionary, that means everyone makes the same wage. It's like the Soviet Union, even though wages were graduated there. But also money didn't have the same meaning because of the planned economy. You could only spend so much because there was only, there was not much of a surplus that was made. It was always about making enough.
Right.
And shortages occurred when there were disruptions. But okay.
Yeah, okay.
Cafe, Freedom Farms, and Community Production Center, as well as the Green Team. And through those cooperatives, those who are members of that cooperative are not only members of the cooperative, but they have financial ownership in that as well.
Is basically showing people that we control what it is that we do and that we have a say in what it is that we do. Now, what that is, we're educating ourselves every day on. We know what the issues are. We know what the problems are.
Is this your connection or
but
mine?
I believe that
the
nobody
frame
ever
rate
has.
The frame rate has dipped.
I'm looking at the playback on Twitch. It definitely has dipped. I don't know what is happening with my connection tonight.
Is my frame rate okay?
Is
my frame rate okay? I'm waving.
Yeah.
Okay. I put it down to 30 FPS for me.
Yeah.
So hopefully
it's working
that
for
would
you.
help.
I'm gonna change the resolution on the video. We'll bump it down just a little bit.
Okay, that would probably help.
360. That's really bad though. Yeah.
Don't
Let's see if we
worry,
can
it's-
just set it at
I know
720.
we're gonna be accused of hiding the reality.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry, I just came off of listening/watching Demon Mama reacting to the latest in conspiracy theory. Well, shenanigans, I guess.
I see.
Tartaria. Yeah.
Not one that I'm familiar with. What is?
I know. I
what
wasn't
is
either.
Tartaria?
It's been developed in the last 3 years, which is surprising considering you think that crowd has their hands full with COVID and making things up about shots and whatever. But no, they were also combining all the different alternative history. We're the most important historical people thing.
Okay.
Like how the new chronology puts Russians at the center of everything, and Hotep puts North Africans at the center of everything.
Sure.
Or sub-Saharan Africans too, but well, this one puts the Irish at the center of everything.
The Irish of all people. Okay.
Yes, because there've been presidents that are Irish, so you start there, and you also look at how the Irish have had political, power in America, and obviously this means something. It can't just be that they were an organized ethnic group.
Coincidence.
Yeah, there must be more to it than that. So, the order of the Hibernians is their, Masonic, the Masons. They look at all of those order of the Hibernian clubs, and they basically say these Irish are in control of everything. But in anything, the Irish became the Jews. I mean, it goes into all crazy stuff. It's great. It's fucking great, though. Because it also believes all of American cities were built by a previous civilization.
Oh my God. I heard some crazy conspiracy theorist. I think it was on Hannah Reloaded. And yeah, he was like, we've lost all the plans for all these old and he pinned it on like the City Beautiful movement. He's like, how the heck do we build that stuff?
City,
back
yeah,
then?
right, yeah, City Beautiful. The Colombian World's Fair, saying like, how is this built so fast?
Yeah,
temporary,
right.
my ass. Like, no, yeah, it's made to look really good, but it's made of it's just a wood frame with some stone on it.
Yeah,
it was temporary. It was just like, I mean, it's weird. It's misunderstanding of architecture. It's weird. It's obviously that bottom level conspiracy where you just have your own reality. But the Tartar area, I didn't get the linguistic reference. It's they keep showing maps of Eurasia, and the big Tartaria is basically the entire steppe. Okay. You know, the area that didn't have a state. So you have Renaissance maps that are basically filling in all of Asia that isn't Persia or China or Russia as Tartaria. They're calling it the land of Tartars. And so this asshole thinks that's an ancient empire that history has ignored. Except it's the Mongol Empire. It just happened to be called this by, Polacks.
Yeah, I mean, it's like how when the Christians encountered the people of the British Isles, they called them the heathens, the people of the heath. Where is this heathen empire? How has it been overlooked in history?
It's all in the documents. It's all in the documents, folks.
You just gotta look at the transcripts. It's all right there, black and white.
You want evidence? I'll show you evidence. So this video, this channel goes through all of it, and It's funny as hell. Anyway, we're getting off track.
That's fine. Here we go.
The answer that every day we move forward collectively, we'll eventually find out what that is. Of course, we're talking about food justice. We're having healthier food options for people.
Like barbecue, like grilled chicken.
Slowly but surely we're getting there. And my role for the cafe overall is just to have a relationship with food and to educate people about how important that relationship with food is.
I'm looking at the playback again. It's just
I know it's pretty bad.
too slow.
But maybe she's grilling the chicken without the skin on. That's much healthier.
That very well maybe.
I'm just
at least it's not deep fried chicken. So
I mean, everything in this video will be entirely based. It's just I'm just teasing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll see if this does a little bit better with the playback.
Or considered what you call a food desert.
Hopefully at least
There
the
really
audio's
isn't
coming
any
through
fresh
for you
produce
guys.
available. Majority of the grocery stores around here are a lot of that produce that is on the verge of going bad in other areas, and then they'll bring it over here. Driving the Walmart is probably about 15 minutes away from this location. And then you have McDade's, which is about 5 minutes away from this particular location, but a lot of people here don't have vehicles, so it's hard to get to that fresh food without their
Which means they're not car-pilled.
All of the co-ops work collectively together. So Freedom Farms Co-op is going to provide the produce for the cafe and catering service.
We have a lot of experienced farmers around here who help us out, but our crew is mainly young folks who ain't never farmed nothing in their life. So, it's a constant learning experience for them. About a week ago, they didn't know some of the things back here, what they were. So they cut a bunch of herbs down that they didn't know.
A lot of the dirt that we're recycling from other places or that they dig up, they're going to put right there. We got compost bins on the other side of the fence right there that you can see on your way out. A lot of people in our organization, in the community, will come and dump green foods, no meats and stuff like that into there, and that gets mulched right there into that dirt right there, which gets used in these beds right here.
We're trying to buy this strip mall complex to create a cooperative grocery store and a greenhouse hydroponic farming system that will support the grocery.
We're thinking about life and plants and the water that nurture us. So that's respecting the resources. That's us regenerating and planting back into the earth, and so that it grows out and feeds us and nourishes us.
In my culture, the way that I was raised, the kitchen was the conversation starter. Once you have that food on the table, you have people available to consume this food, then you can start conversations. And talking about food itself, that's one big conversation, because a lot of people are not eating healthy, and then they're wanting to eat more healthier. But then when you open up that issue around food, other issues, you have no other choice but to consume on other issues that the food is connected to as well. So it's
This is odd. You never had this problem before.
It's about having that conversation.
I don't know what's
first,
happening.
Then educating ourselves on what the issues are, and then
Trying to see
coming
if
to a
there's
conclusion
other programs
collectively
open
on how
that
to
can
solve
close.
these issues.
These two buildings that you see across the street here, this is going to be our community production center.
So the idea of us having a fabrication lab was to get the technology that's coming in the next generation, to get ahead of the curve and learning that technology, democratizing that technology, so that people in this community will be able to use it, determine its uses, advance it, and begin to be able to produce everything that we need for ourselves, as opposed to relying on the usual capitalist means of acquiring whatever goods and services that you need. The equipment that we'll have in here, the things that are popularized are 3D printers, laser cutters, water cutters, the ability to make electronics, program electronics, to make physical goods with molding and casting, to cut wood, to cut metal, to shape wood, to shape metal, to shape plastic, and any number of things. Initially, this facility is going to focus on education, so we'll pull in some students from local universities. We'll also put in some community members. We'll maybe even pull in some people from outside of the community to do the first couple of waves of learning. But once this is up and running and we've done a good bit of education and have a sufficient amount of people that can teach the equipment, teach the material, then this building is going to be a much more open and community space. It'll be what we call our maker space. Once that's up and running, we hope to sort of replicate the equipment that we'll have in that building and open this up to the community. So if people want to build their own houses, use certain bits of technology, use the tools that we have. It'll be sort of open sharing community space where people will be able to come in and make the things that they want after getting the training on the equipment that we'd have in that building. But it's
That's
awesome.
really cool. I like how they're diversifying their operation too, and not just doing the food thing, not just doing retail, but like, you know, trying to provide
Well,
more
yeah,
for the communities.
I'll be interested in seeing whether because they mention a regular kind of makerspace, and obviously makerspaces do classes to train people to use them, but that's still kind of individualized production. I'd be interested in seeing if the one building you mentioned, where it's more of a professional production facility, where they are making things in mass, which is then sold at a retail co-op. So,
Right.
so it is single stream, so to speak. And especially if the materials going into the makerspace, because I know certain you can make a bioplastic that you can put into a 3D printer, or you use materials that aren't plastic that can go into a 3D printer, that could be made from stuff from the garden, or for the farm. So it really could be a single stream of raw resources to industrial prefab, or industrial production, and then into consumer production, and allowing people to participate and do their own thing at each step, not to become their own entrepreneurs, but to become members of each of these co-ops. So that's
Right.
where the organizations, where it isn't just makerspace, so you can make your own guitar or your own small business, which is where because Troy, New York has a makerspace, and it mostly serves the graduates or the pre-grads from RPI, engineering college, and these are people who are wildly, maybe they're not coming in with capitalistic ideology, but or just basic mainstream views. But the ideology of the college is very capitalistic, because it's actually a private university, and it's been not, in fact, in the last 20 years, it's been part of that huge shift of the universities, all universities, basically in the right-wing capitalist direction, neoliberalism, and neoliberalization, post-liberal of education, where the purpose of the college is to make small business owners, and that grows Troy's economy if some of them stay in Troy with nice tax benefits, and the downtown actually has a business economy again, which for a while it was called Troylet. But of course, if you walk 2 blocks away from downtown in either direction, you're in a ghetto, especially north. So there's a lot of work to be done, and that's where the community centers and community projects are. Yeah.
Cool.
Also going to be a two-way exchange, because you got a lot of people in this community with a lot of skills in farming, mechanics, businesses, and just about anything that you can imagine. Black Jackson is income poor, but not experience poor. There's a lot of people with a lot of skills here.
So they should start a time bank too.
Envisioning a new economy, which I know is going to be extremely hard, because we currently run off of this, system where you got to have money, but really evaluating and thinking about, like, what do I need and what do I want?
The just transition piece requires a lot of creativity to address the inequality issues, to make it, I think, far more practical and less abstract. How does this sit with 50% unemployment in this city? We have a campaign called the Union Co-op Initiative, where we're trying to engage the unions, and it's a struggle. It's really 3 unions that support it. The teachers union, JFT, CWA, which is the public employees, and the UAW, United Auto Workers. Organized labor in the United States is basically down to 10%. Most of that is public sector workers. Unions have never really been strong in Mississippi. Never.
Nissan is the factory that's here.
They will say how they do not need a union. They have an open door policy. We found out that that's not true. They ignore a lot of the complaints or grievances that the workers have. I wouldn't say Nissan don't recognize unions. They don't recognize unions in the United States. They have unions all over the world in all the plants except of the 3 here in the United States.
The Nissan workers trying to unionize, and there were instances where folks had guns pulled out on them. It definitely turned into white against black, and the plant was majority black, where white workers were getting things that the black workers weren't getting.
Mississippi is still racist. The practices of this state is racist, and that's the whole reason they came here. The Canton plant is the most producing plant out of all the Nissan plants. It profits more than other Nissan plants. Yet we still get paid the less, we get treated the worst.
There were a number of workers at one point who were testing positive for cocaine and marijuana, who had been working there for years or were about to be turned over into full-time employees. One of those workers were white, the other 8 were black. There's a clinic right across the street from that plant. Those folks went right across the street to get a drug test for what they were told they were tested positive for, and it tested negative. There was one white man who went across the street, did the same process. His job was given back.
I took hair samples, I did urine samples, I took blood samples. They wouldn't accept none of them. And then they didn't show me the results that they said I failed. I didn't see none of those either. They just walked me out the door.
People have compared it to plantations, and so corporations are looking to come to places like Mississippi because they know that folks are not employed, or there's not a lot of opportunity for employment.
One of the things that we're really trying to say, look, you're one of the bodies, working class entity.
Can you pause it?
Tremendous amount of resources in the case of the.
So, one of those, I'm really thankful to some of my professors in college, and one of those moments that really clicked with me was the end of one particular, it was like the end of the Western Survey course. And we were going through like the latest and contemporary star architecture, one of which was a star architect, Zaha Hadid, an Iraqi woman, boomer, who was designing, we were going over her design of a BMW plant. And it's the, quote unquote, most green. It's very well designed. It has the management that's kind of weaving through. It's all organic with the massive industrial sheds. And the professor, in a way, kind of brought up the question of how ecological project, when showed her of the basically agricultural fields of the site, that it used to be agriculture, and then the after big industrial fucking shed. And it's like, how ecological is this project really in the scheme of things? And is this really the best use of land resources and so on? These are the questions we as architects should be asking. We're thinking about when we're working or thinking about our place in history, whatever. And our last slide was basically like this empty lot in Hong Kong where it's like it's a construction site, it's empty, it's full of its potential, and it's just surrounded by this, the densest of the dense kind of urban going up and out of frame. It's just, and just kind of just the question of like, think about the context. Just think about every site has context, and it's because it's a history course. The opposite of YouTube history channels. And that really clicked with me because it was the stark relief of like how bullshit a lot of the profession was as well. But just the rhetoric of ecological design, but it's for big corporations, and it's a car company, and so on and so on. And this is in a college and a university in New York City where no one is car-pilled. My peers aren't car-pilled. I mean, some were, I suppose. Not really, though. Of course, no New Yorker is really that car-pilled. Car-pilled, if they live in the boroughs. If they don't live in the boroughs, they're most definitely car-pilled, because they're driving everywhere, including into the metro area where you don't need a car. Yeah, Zaha Hadid. So Zaha Hadid is one of those Starkitect can really tear her down because she was designing the stadium for Qatar, that were basically built with slave labor, and when asked about this, she basically kind of gave a not my responsibility kind of answer. It's not. It's
That's
not.
nice.
I wasn't part of that planning. I just designed the building and so on. And she also does, most of her she does big projects, overly expensive, lots of white, lots of organic shapes. They look like vaginas. But she's a woman. I mean, it's odd. I'm not being sexist when I say this, but like there's a joke in Veep where it's like the last joke of the show that the mausoleum not the mausoleum, but the presidential library for Myers looks like a big vagina, or something like that. And it just made me think, like, well, there actually are buildings that look like that. So it's not even good satire to me because it's not outrageous enough.
I guess it would make a little bit of sense since so many of those massive skyscrapers that male architects have built are very phallic in design. So
yes, she to my knowledge doesn't do high rises, but she does like large mega buildings.
This stuff is just.
What do you think?
I am not impressed. This looks like stuff you find in SimCity as like, oh, these are future buildings.
What do you think inspired
these eggs? This looks like a bunch of eggs that have, fused together in the middle.
It's because she's a woman.
It's
feminist.
Hey, look.
This is so when I'm making the joke that she's a woman, that like this is considered more feminine or feminist architecture, or that she's a great feminist because she's a trailblazer woman architect.
Yeah, just women in more places, right?
Well, in the last 20 years, the number of women in the field has exploded. It is getting to actual parity, which is pretty cool. But then there's a question of how many women are becoming partners, how many women are starting their own firms, which there are plenty, but I don't know the numbers.
Well, I mean,
I stopped caring once.
How many women are organizing their firms as cooperatives, or
allowing
unitization to?
And that's where that's where my thinking shifted, where I stopped caring about the firms and how they're starting, but like when are they cooperatives? And some are. There are, but they're more like collectives than co-ops. They're not legally co-ops. I think they're just more like. But they're all in Europe or whatever. They're collaboratives. She didn't impress me.
Of cement and concrete and
box, pretty boxy.
Oof.
And there was a lot of students in school that were kind of not copying her, but taking cues from case studies. And of course, making a model, it was just a lot of work. So, and it's easy to make designs like this when you have an army of interns, paid labor, whatever. But yeah, I don't like her work either. I just reference her as the Starkitect I actually dislike. I dislike the most.
This one is just ridiculous. What is this? Like, is this called Flatline or something like that? I mean, it looks like an angiograph.
I get you. Well, maybe it depends on. Is there a caption?
It's the Riverside Museum, in addition to the Glasgow Museum of Transport in Scotland.
Transport Museum. Interesting.
A striking figure with its zigzagging zinc-clad roof. Ew.
Yes. Yeah. There's usually a pretty good idea when it comes to forms like these, but then it gets exaggerated, or form is not following function. And of course, that's an old modern idea. The new modern idea is yes is more, and form is kind of king. Form over function in a way.
Yeah.
Especially when it's for a capitalist client. These are sculptures as buildings.
Yes.
They're not buildings, they're sculptures that happen to be large enough to be inhabited. And that's Zaha Hadid's kind of thing. So
yikes.
Okay. So why was I thinking of her? Oh yeah, because the car plant. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure. All right, let's get back to it.
AFL-CIO. You guys can serve as a bank for your own development if you so choose, right? An investment in the development of your own members. If you just want to start there in their future, you can do your own just transition. A lot of the unions forget that they once had co-ops internal to their own operation to take care of many of the social services that people needed before the welfare state created those things. Like unions actually used to have that in shop.
So really, we're just, they're just, and we should be just recreating that.
Funny to a lot of people, but
make a union that isn't tied to the workplace, but
focus right now around human rights budgeting. We
neighborhood,
have to have
or city based.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds a lot closer to like the IWW model. Just everyone in one big union.
Yeah. Eventually, if the IWW is big enough, so that's kind of where, like, if I do IWW work seriously, not just be a dues-paying member, which I am, but to, I think my goal would be to start Heim Bank within for membership, for the members to trade labor with each other, and then grow from that and develop such, I know there's probably a potential committee would be a bulk buying club, but then think of logistics of like let's say we bulk buy a bunch of things, and then the logistics of mailing it out to all the members, which are dispersed. They're not all in one place. So, but if you get enough members in a cluster, then that cluster could be bulk buying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Going to BJ's.
There you go.
Get a BJ's account and, get all the essentials.
Material foundation in order to lay the.
Sorry, that doesn't help with fruit and veggies though.
Yeah. Oh well.
But yeah,
you can figure that out other ways, or grow your own like they've been doing. So
exactly.
Transition, not saying we're just automatically going to pay police or we're just automatically going to pave the roads, but like, no, we may not need them. We may not want them. The budget has to be determined by the democratic priorities that are expressed from the assembly. We are aware the pie is limited. We're aware that the tax revenue is decreasing. Well, we're trying to argue with our own folks and say that's the wrong way of looking at it, as opposed to what are the skills and the resources we do have in the community that are not being tapped into, that are not being utilized, that could be tapped into if we create a real broad, dynamic solidarity system. So let's say we can move the municipality to creating a time banking system, and somebody could exchange some labor around installing a solar system for a bill being paid. We got all these empty houses out here, but we get all these people who have the skills to fix them. Like, that's up to us. It's not a limitation that we have to accept. That's what we're trying to put to the city. That's a crisis of imagination. We can get all that
another
if
idea.
we want to.
Pause.
We just have to reprioritize.
Another idea brought up by a fellow occupier, an older gent, was a city-run program of sweat equity that at least was city-owned property. But first, the city needs to own the property. At the moment, it's all owned by a quasi-public bank called the Land Bank, which is pretty good at doing things with vacant properties, especially those, because it's the county that, when someone's delinquent on taxes, it's the county that, takes it, not the city. So it's on the county level. But if the county had a program that you could be given the property and you could put somebody in to eventually own it, as well as fix it up, but that will provide the money for the materials if you provide the labor. At the moment, the way it works, though, is they just want to flip the properties. So they basically, you can have this property for 15 grand, but you have to basically renovate it within 2 years or we take it back. So you need to prove you have the money to renovate, meaning, you need 150 grand on top of the 10 or 15 grand that you're using to purchase it. Now, sometimes it's like 80 grand or 100 grand, and then it needs, another 50 grand of work, but that's what it usually totals anyway. It's like buying if you're new. But, yeah, so I haven't looked at, I've interacted with the land bank a bit, but I haven't. When it comes to buying my own home, I want to just buy it and then worry about getting something to renovate when I have a base of my own. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be really cool. I like that. Land bank.
Prioritize some things. It's a kind of an argument to the city. We're not asking you to do anything, but get out the way.
Here in Jackson, I know there's other organizations and there's other cooperatives that are developing.
We've got an 8-block area where we're working to build a sustainable model neighborhood from the inside out, ground up, using all of our blighted and abandoned property and the skills of the people that live here. We build everything using only salvage materials. The whole idea is like to use construction, food production, and folk art to renew and revitalize the neighborhood. We moved here 4 years ago and we bought a house. We bought this house here for $1,500. Everybody's extremely poor. Nobody's working, about 90% unemployment rate. We started having neighborhood meetings, and what we realized really quickly was that everybody could articulate where they would go if they had more money, if they, had a better job. That's how we started saying, okay, well, if they can see what their ideal place would be, well, why not start organizing with that, saying look, we can own this space and we can start to create what we can see. We did a skills assessment and we found that 90% of the residents actually have a farming background, a farming skill. And we had a lot of land. And this, where the farm is, was the neighborhood dumping ground. And the people wanted to figure out how to clean it up. So we decided to put a farm there that actually looks like a landscape cottage garden because of the trauma associated with farming. So that is a big part of our challenge, is getting people, although they have that skill, back into growing food, to make money. Because that's the number one thing that people want to do here, is they want to make money. We have a main street, so right now we're working to build a neighborhood economy. So we have to be able to make the place feel safe enough for people with disposable income to come in and buy products that we produce. We have a youth apprentice program, so we work with the neighborhood youth, teaching them different skills. So everything that is done here is done by the people that live here. We call it neighbor labor, and they're paid. As we start to make the place feel safe, that's when organized capital comes in and displaces people. So we bought all of the vacant land. So we own 65 properties as a neighborhood collective. It's more like a quiet radicalism, our approach, because we're not ready to raise our hand.
Well, that's pretty cool. The idea of resisting gentrification just by buying it up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course, that's super important. Now, of course, you still can get bullied off, but that's where community defense comes in, and the ability to resist harassment or to counter harass. Not sure if everyone there is prepared to do that or not, but I have questions about when they say that they were paying because that's how this would work, to get neighbors that were actually organized, who are all poor, to pay them to garden and to do all this stuff and to collect salvage, because otherwise you can collect a lot of salvage, but it's usually more profitable to bring it to the metal recycler.
Sure.
When really we could be collecting a shitload of metal and using it to build a neighborhood. Building your own, basically your own Chrislandia. Right. So I think you could put this in to Chrislandia, where instead of squatting, it's a poor neighborhood that's on the outskirts of town, it looks like. And the properties are only $2,000, Jesus fucking Christ.
Man.
Now, obviously there were probably shithole houses.
Oh yeah. Probably no running water.
They've probably had to put a lot of work into it. And I can believe that I could do that myself as well, but it would take me a lot of time, and it would need to be a full-time thing for me. But then where does the money come from you can't salvage all the materials. I know you can do a lot with salvage, but I feel like there are things that you want to actually pay good to get good quality stuff, so it doesn't break often or what have you. But maybe because it's the South and you don't have to worry about cold, what have you, that's probably helps.
That definitely could be.
Those moisture issues too, though. But yeah.
True. Yeah, that'd be interesting to know more about that.
head, you raise your head, it gets chopped off, you know what I mean? So we're kind of quietly here building an infrastructure that will be able to resist the forces that we know will come as soon as we build something that is really great.
That sounds pretty woke to me.
Yeah.
Real wokeness.
A core part of the program is doing the community land trust so that we decommodify land as much as possible. Eventually, we'll take more and more people.
That's what she means
away
by
from
the
urgency
cooperatively properties. Community land trust you start with some properties, you buy more.
You just keep buying up more, and then
I just hate that the community land trust in Albany really seems to have hit a wall. I mean, I think they still buy property, but it just feels like one property a year, and that's just not growth. That's not growth because they're not losing property ever because they can sell the house, but they own the land. That's the point.
Sure.
I guess I could give them a call and ask how many properties. Look at their brochure, the community loan fund puts out their annual report saying how many loans they made, how much money's that they got. It's in the 300 billion now or something, but but the land trust, I don't know, doesn't seem as public with this is how many properties we've grown by, and eventually we'll have a whole neighborhood, but that never seems to be the case because maybe you have so many families who just don't sell their house, or they do, but they sell to the highest bidder, the gentrifier. They're not. I feel like there are all of these properties that are 1,000 that are being listed on Zillow. They should be buying all of those. I'm not sure why they don't have the capital to buy every 50 grand house, so that eventually they have, they could double their portfolio. I think if you just,
that would seem smart.
but maybe they don't seem to have that capital on hand. It seems it's really frustrating considering they've been around for decades.
Yeah,
and they are a kind of a landlord, and they kind of act like a regular landlord too, because some of the properties are rentals that they've kept, and that's because I worked with one of their managers, and he was licensed and he carried a handgun on him, and they said it's kind of not so necessary, but just a precaution when he's walking through the hood or collecting, and I basically painted a kitchen for them. It was one of my first kind of gigs as a teenager. Unfortunately, I was given a check as payment, and I lost the check.
Oh no!
and I didn't have the heart, or because I didn't understand. I still don't kind of understand how checks work to ask for another one. But I think you can actually ask for a replacement check, right?
Yeah, they're required to pay you.
I didn't do that because I was
cancel the first one.
So embarrassed.
Yeah, no, I probably would have been too at that age, especially if it was my first job.
But if it was never cash, then they would have avoided it themselves. But they never contacted me again. So,
right. But that is unfortunate that they're still acting as a landlord. You would hope a new model would go along with the new model of or the newer model of being a land trust. Just give people housing, charge them only enough for upkeep, and
I could kind of explain it wasn't just ideological, but more pragmatism in that these projects in Albany, because Albany has never had a radical movement, not like Jackson, which has this literally a Malcolm X grassroots movement. It has this radicalism. It has this.
Right.
It's woke. You have these kind of conservationist, environmentalist, kind of hippie types at best, who started these community projects by the 80s, or maybe in the 70s was the germination of it. And as they were my age, or they were starting these when they were my age, but the walls of the city government, the machine politics, as well as just how capitalist things are, they're probably faced with these walls where they couldn't really push it as far as they wanted, or they made compromising decisions. of we're not going to start, not allowed to, or it's unprecedented. So we'll continue with the, no, it's also part of their own ideology of home ownership being the most important thing. So we want to make more people homeowners. Owning property is what frees people. It's very bourgeois, petty bourgeois. And I think that's at the heart of it, and why I don't really work with them too much as my because they are my parents' generation.
Yeah.
They have a petty bourgeois mindset, and their goals are, we empower people with home ownership, not with housing.
Yeah.
Or it was never on the table, so it was just never an option, either because there's no alternative, even though they're doing something that's non-market. But
right, and that might be good for like a generation, but then what happens when those people
happens with
sell their houses?
Yes.
Then they.
Well, the point of the land trust is though people can sell the house, but it reverts back to the trust, right?
The house does too. It's not they have to sell to the trust.
No, well, actually, it depends. I mean, I think part of the land trust is you're paying monthly rent towards owning the property, or you own it as long as you're paying into the mortgage, so to speak. But it's not a mortgage like a bank loan. It's to the land trust.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Okay.
The land trust come in a lot of sizes. Like I was in Maine, and it was like a nature preserve, but it was actually a land trust that had all the property around this lake. And although you had a lot of different houses, so it was a private lake, but because it was a land trust, all the houses were following pretty strict guidelines they were set back from the lake, and the lake edge was preserved. So when you're on or around the lake, it didn't feel like it was private. It almost felt like you're in the wilderness. But as far as the road that goes around it, and there were houses, it was actually, you had all these private homes and vacation homes. So it was a nice kind of hybrid where, because it was a land trust, it was just better and not spoiled in a capitalistic fashion.
Right.
Because it was collective, and it had a board whose mission was to preserve the lake for people to enjoy, even if it's a minority. But of course, anyone could visit. We were there. I forget how we were staying there. Were we in a tent? I think they also had a campground, so I think we were using that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's definitely a step up for sure. All right, moving on. Almost done with this video.
Having to worry about having a roof over my head and paying ground rent and paying rent, which pushes you and drives you in a certain sense to have to engage the market on the market's terms. It has to become a communal entity, and something that we create communal rules around how to use, how to protect, how to preserve, how to regenerate. And that's how we wind up getting this building and then using this as a base to grow out and expand. We've placed more of a priority on actually, in a certain sense, acquiring the land, and even ahead of kind of building co-ops. And we bank a premium. We don't build on anything that we don't own. Like that's a principle of ours. Because if we feel that if the community land trust owns it, and if we put some institution on it, a co-op that doesn't survive or something like that, you can repurpose the use of that for something else, as opposed to having to go rent someplace, or your business being driven out of business because the landlord forces the rent up.
That's always a huge risk. Yeah.
Everything sucks in Albany because of that, where any community is renting and they don't own shit. The only community entities that seem to own their own stuff are nonprofits, though. They're not cooperatives. They're not really that radical in their politics, even. They're community orgs that are nonprofits, and thus they're either kind of have the air of the nonprofit industrial complex, or they're just on the very margin of. because they're not
Sure.
that successful or something like that. But or they've been chugging along for decades since, again, same clique, not clique, but same cohort of people that started all these things in the 80s, and but didn't really know how to work together that well because they still had these petty bourgeois values. They were white boomers, middle class boomers, and and that got in the way of a lot of cooperation because they weren't using they were using consensus or something like that, but really badly. Just all the problems the New Left had going forward, and they never really resolved them.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Because of the milieu of our city, which is just machine politics, and it just poisons a lot. And there's a lack of solidarity, even though everyone's kind of trying their best to have solidarity and work together.
Sure.
There's still so many barriers.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
But yeah,
So,
to work around that and to buy as much land as possible, maybe because Jackson and other cities are just so cheap, and Albany having something of a stable economy isn't actually that cheap. You can get certain vacant lots for $5,000 in the hood, and you can buy houses in the hood for 50 if they're beat up, but still probably livable. But yeah, and that's definitely like forces in Troy and things like that. But they always seem to hit some kind of organizational wall, either because of their internal structure, the people who make it up, or something like that. So I'm trying to think of the ways like this could be developed in Albany. I could find probably 100 people who love what Co-op Jackson's doing. Could we do that here? And maybe it's
Seems
just
like
a time
step,
constraint.
sure.
What was it that these guys could just put in so much time to organize this, or to get to a point where they're economically independent, they don't need no day job,
Yeah.
or what have you. For me, it's more about getting to a point where I'm part-time, but have an income where, I'm paying taxes and all
Can
that
sustain
shit.
you. Yeah.
I'm at 32 right now, and it's only going to go up once I'm a grade 9 and above. So I'm on a career track, but I hope not to be in it for more than 8 years. So
Sure.
that's still a while, and
that's
a
a long
lot can
time.
happen. The whole hood could be gentrified by then, and I've lost
Yeah.
my window's
Everything.
gone, and
Yeah.
everything's too expensive. And Kingston, just to go back to Kingston, which was talked about a few streams ago, they are pushing for full rent control because besides the fact that tons of New Yorkers are moving in, the rents have increased 30% in 2 years. Half the city is below the poverty line, and so on. It's
30%
not
in 2 years.
it's not a rich city. It's just all the suburbs around it, and so.
Just
But you
driving
have,
everything up, huh?
yeah, right. And so the landlords, the owners, are raising the rents to entice or to, because New Yorkers can, commute using Metro North or something,
Sure.
or drive. But I can't.
Yeah.
That's like an hour and a half. Well, not a full hour and a half, I guess. But an hour and a half.
Actually,
But anyway.
all right. Moving on.
On you. This street is very strategic for us. If you turn this way, you are literally a 5-minute walk from downtown. A mile and a half down this road is the Jackson Zoo. It's the largest golf course in the city of Jackson. And then right behind that is the original airport. And then right behind that, there's a free trade zone. You have this downtown expanse of new businesses they want to create that connect people to the zoo. This way is like your due north, and the gentrification is coming down this way. We've become, I would argue, a roadblock by, in many respects, fortifying this institution. Most of this block is owned by that organization. That organization is a Christian-based homeless center. It's the largest homeless service provider in the state of Mississippi. The Chamber of Commerce, they've been trying to remove them from this block for a long time. Between basically two organizations, we now own 90% of this block. So if we don't sell, there's no pressure for them to have to move their operation. It means that the forces of gentrification have less of an incentive to come here. And this is a communally owned space, it's not individually owned. And this is a communally owned space, it's not individually owned. Options for the community of how land ownership and things can be different and serve different purposes.
Pause again. It kind of reminds me of how you block and reverse desertification.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of gentrification, desertification,
Yeah,
where you just have a line of trees and greenery, and that itself creates a microclimate which creates a buffer, and that's being done in sub-Saharan Africa.
True.
Just on the tide, and so it's like if you just have one block that's between you and the gentrification, that can stop the movement. You know, you don't need to shoot your guns in the air to keep the property values low. You know,
Right. Yeah, you just have to ally yourself with people helping the homeless, and I guess that's enough to keep the Starbucks and the Whole Foods from considering investment.
It's just tough when you so the block there he's gesturing at looks like it was completely vacant. Thus, the prices were so low he could just the co-op jacks could scoop it up. In my city, it's pretty dense, and there isn't too many like blocks that are kind of like the kind in Detroit where it's completely empty. It's a patchwork of slumlords and homeowners, even homeowners and landlords that are absent. Some are nearby, some are next door. It would be really difficult to consolidate a block. There's a guy I worked with who it's his big goal to do that, but then he had this fucking attitude of like, once gentrification happens, I'll sell the block and for $2 million or something.
Yeah.
And then
Land
take that money,
speculation.
take that money, and then do another block somewhere else.
Yeah,
and that's
geez.
but then it's like I improved this block so much, it's now officially like on the map, you know. But it's like, but that's not the anyway.
Right.
A lot of differences between him and me. He's much older, and he's total narcissist. At the same time as being like this guy who basically bought all the vacant lots on this block. There's quite a few of them, and he's doing a lot of gardening there and what have you. And his goal is to buy up the houses too. But that's much more difficult because the costs are exponentially higher, and it's difficult to lock down because they're in the marketplace. If you don't have the right bid or the paperwork, or if someone puts in a higher, I say bid, but I mean offer, you might, and then boom, you won't have 90% of the block if something goes wrong. It's difficult.
Yeah.
I don't think that could happen in Albany because even the land trust, you look at their map and it's also a patchwork. And maybe that's what slowed all these community orgs down, is that
could be
they can't consolidate anything.
Yeah,
always just have little patches, little just unit there, unit there,
too
unit there.
atomized. Yeah.
Even the local landlords kind of act this way, where they're forced to be spread across the city or something.
That is definitely something to ponder.
It's true anarchy, market anarchy. Because none of it's planned. Let the market decide.
When has that ever steered us astray? All right, let's finish it up here. Last segment.
We're trying to learn how to be democratic. We don't know how to do that. I've never lived in a democratic society. I really don't know what that looks like. We are in a period right now where there's a lot of intense debate around which way to go forward. For instance, I didn't want and was trying to give a warning about Chokwe Antar running for mayor this time. It was my analysis that without a real strong social movement that was dictating the terms, that we were going to be in a position of being dictated to by capital to actually enforce the austerity that we've been fighting all along. People believe.
I mean, that is kind of a dilemma about which you do first, because if you do the what they call the solidarity economy first, then you have a lot of buy-in for a potential candidate and a lot of people that could potentially, have some free time to go and volunteer and really make a good organization.
Yeah, and that
happen out of it.
candidate comes from your movement. That's the important thing. The
Right,
candidate
right.
needs to
Yeah,
come
yeah,
from
yeah,
your
yeah.
movement. Too many movements, and these are the leftist movements that Haas critiques, or would say are the not real left wingers. They're for a candidate to grab onto and say they're part of
Yeah.
they could use our movement, or
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are using them as with our movement, and that's how BLM thought, and its leaders or the people who were in it, or to even say it was a movement. But I would say it wasn't even a movement. It had no organization, only a
Yeah, yeah.
smattering of nonprofits that were all eventually going to either already recuperated or going to be. I could see it the moment it started. That's why I wasn't really, that excited, so to speak. Or with, but at the same time, then that cynicism stops me and my organization from using that as an opportunity to grow membership or something like that. But
Right.
it would seem too awkward to me to do that, because people are really enthusiastic about not BLM as an organization, but just we have our movement. Why would we join your organization?
Yeah.
Maybe it's all in my head that's what the interactions would be, but I think I've had those those interactions as well at the same time. At least on a racial level, where why would I vote for you? You're white, you can't help me. Speaking to like an older activist who, when I was like, what if I ran for office, would you support me? We're on the same side here. And that really like hurt me, rather hurt my feelings, but also just like there's a lot of barriers, emotional or otherwise, to that kind of organizing. And other thoughts. Oh yeah, but the voices of experience say build the base first. But
Yeah.
is it an economic base or is it a political
Makes sense
base?
to me.
What kind of organization is it? Is it a
I mean,
political one?
it should really be both at
Is
once.
It has to be both, yeah. And that's where, like, as a green, we talk about partnering and being, integrated with social movements or co-ops, and they are our base, and we are their political representatives. But that's a trade-off or a deal that people aren't prepared to make. Like, we can propose it, but nobody's buying it, in the marketplace of ideas. The people at the co-op either want to be apolitical, they don't want to be involved in a political machinations or what have you, because they're all cynical about it. That's why they're doing solidarity economy, because the electoral system sucks. So why should we want to participate? So there's a kind of a double bind there. So I'm unsure where the transition occurs from solidarity economy to political power.
Sure.
Dual power strategy, is in the minds of people, but it's not articulated as. I guess this is where it's just we wait until like the shit hits the fan, and then we'll make a decision then. Just like all the past revolutionaries did. It's not like they had a master plan they were following.
That's true.
They did have a bit more theory about how things would play out, and they were kind of following it. But at the same time, they were also following where the path of least resistance was.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
and it was all very much theoretical until they found their moment to seize. So yeah.
But that's why the left went into entryism and basically abandoned radical activism, what have you, because the path of least resistance in the 70s was to follow the money, to follow neoliberalism, because you were going to get beat up or crushed if you didn't.
Right.
And we're left with that legacy, which is really sad, because then if we also follow the path of least resistance in a way. So again, our resistance is not, so that's not really the way of thinking about it, path of least resistance, but making the decision in the moment, but while being informed with some kind of theory of social change. But I think that's also leftist ideology, the new left of like social change theories, which are not that materialist, because the social change comes from social movements. Are the social movements based in unions? Well, they're not. They can't be anymore.
Right.
What are they based in? They're not going to be maker spaces, you know. I mean, could they be? That's something they're going to try to figure out. And
No, I mean, I think that's why that part of the left is so finds it so easy to just be online, because you don't have to have a material basis for it. You can just fight culture war battles all day and all night, and you know,
we don't want to be in that trap.
We definitely do not want to be in that trap, because oh my God, I do not want to have an opinion about the gender of Mr. Potato Head, or you know, whether M&M's is pandering to the wokies, or any of these
even
garbage
if it's
issues.
Even if it's inter-left struggles or inter-left fighting, the stakes are low. Like, what are the stakes of different streamers having drama? Nothing.
Just clout followers.
If you're in a IWW and you're fighting over what project to pursue, there are stakes there. There's a lot of stress on that decision.
Real
and that's where it
really
gets
hurt. Yeah.
Why people can get really hurt. It's why there's more of a let's see that's why it gets more serious and gets ugly.
Sure.
Because of that, because there's real stakes. But yeah, and there's no real but there, but that's something we need to, why we've covered the other decision-making things. You know, he mentions he is not good at being democratic. We all need to be better at being democratic, so that when we're making these decisions, they don't get ugly. Because I can tell you, by using consensus, sociocracy, or the tools of it, it gets it's much nicer. It doesn't get as ugly, because you can make decisions that affect everyone without someone getting butthurt or feeling left out.
Right.
Unless they're really narcissistic, everything has to be about them.
I mean, there's always one.
Oh, you know what? We'll end with this clip that someone shared on. Maybe it was more of a TikTok, but I'm sure it's on YouTube as well. So I'll find that when you. I need to go to the bathroom first. So I know we have an hour.
I'll just finish up the video here as you do, and
I'll be right
then
back.
we'll rejoin for the next one.
Even that their agency actually counts and matters, I think is more important than expedient victories. The social movement in Jackson the last couple of years was not as strong as it was and has been a couple of years prior. A lot of that transitioned into Chokwe's campaign committee and then Chokwe Antar's campaign committee. Who should be in the lead? The social movement or the party apparatus and the government apparatus?
Social movement
and
should.
I'm on the side that at all times, social movement should be the driving force.
I agree.
We have the highest number of black elected officials in the country, bar none, and we're still the poorest state. That's been the case basically since 1972. You know, as neoliberalism continues to advance, you wind up adopting elements of its logic, which force you to look at politics as a market exchange as opposed to a political practice. There was a phrase I first heard in the 80s from the social movements in Venezuela, and it's recently coming back to the forefront of my mind and my imagination. We don't want to be the government, we want to govern.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So this came out 4 years ago. So started in 2014, coming up on a decade in practice. So that's very admirable to see. Let's bring up the next series of videos.
So called Copsis. It's not a very nice like the name, but Copnosis. It's like short 2-minute videos. They got some longer ones where they're having conversations. We're not doing that, but maybe I'll listen to them in a future week and report back.
Okay, so we're just gonna start with what is copiosis? That's just that's a real bad name. That
I don't know who these effers are. I'm sure I like them in real life or something like that. But and maybe they're even comrades, except they'll have some rhetoric where like this isn't socialism. All right,
No,
this is something different.
Hey, we gotta avoid that label, huh?
And
All right,
I'm not even sure you can call it solid. Oh, yeah.
The Copiosis organization is a group of volunteers.
Oh, that's
like your neighborhood.
Hold on, copiosis? That sounds even worse.
It's cope. They cope.
Yeah, it's right.
Cope. It's copium. Well, they definitely came up with the name before copium. Okay,
I'm
or
guessing
cope.
so.
Cope as a noun. You know, this isn't made by Zoomers.
Right. They should have consulted one at least.
Association. In the same way your neighborhood association looks after your neighborhood so you don't have to, the Copiosis organization makes sure people are fairly rewarded NBR for net benefit they create. This is the Copiosis organization's only job, observing people's actions and using the Copiosis algorithm to reward net beneficial ones. They don't tell anyone what to do or how to do it. They don't control resources or organizations. They don't write laws or punish people. They don't act as government to other nations. They just reward people NBR. Millions of volunteers from all walks of life volunteer for the Copiosis organization. If you want to be a volunteer, you can. Anyone completing the training gets in. Like everyone else, the volunteers are rewarded NBR for the net beneficial actions they create. So it's important that decisions they make maximize benefit for people and the planet. That way, they also maximize their individual rewards. In addition to volunteers, a lot of people support the Copiosis organization, providing research and data to make the algorithms smarter. Others watch over the Copiosis organization, just like people today who watch over police, government, other public servants, and your neighborhood association. What's different is, these watchdogs and potential whistleblowers aren't put in jail as they often are today. Instead, they're rewarded for the work they do. The Copiosis organization owns no property and controls nothing and no one. It is not a government, and it welcomes anyone who wants to help the Copiosis organization do its only job, making sure people are rewarded for the net benefit they create. Copiosis, a no risk, no tax, no cost, free market, moneyless economy where everybody wins and nobody loses.
Okay.
Let's watch the video where they explain NBR and what you can use it for. Because if you can't use it to do anything, then it's just free labor for what could be a political cult, as far as I know.
I mean, so far it's giving me some
crypto bro vibes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe some like multi-level marketing dressed up with some corporate jargon vibes. Like
no.
Nexius or whatever.
I would say it's an MLM, but it's dressing up with communist aesthetics, not aesthetics, but saying a moneyless, governmentless
moneyless. Yeah, that's true. No government.
A moneyless, stateless, and likely classless society. So if anything, it's like promising communism, if applicable. But this is where I'm the most skeptical because I haven't read their stuff. And if I look at, I bookmarked their site a long time ago, when I was kind of looking at cooperative models.
Sure.
And I think it came up. Where the hell did I save it?
I don't particularly like their logo either. It kind of looks like a butthole. So that's not great.
Well, I think it's meant to look like it's a pie with arrows.
I am sure it's about bringing people together in the center.
But instead of arrows, they look like spears.
They kind of do look like spears. Yeah.
So kind of.
All right.
Yeah.
What is the next one? No cost is not the same as free. We'll put that one up. Next, share this one as well with y'all.
Maybe I need to go. I don't have Huck saved, do I? No, I have to go to TikTok. So I'm doing my own thing at the moment.
Sure. I'll play it in just a second again.
Fortunately, I don't.
Keep things rolling.
Almost everything we want and need costs something. It has to. People invest time and energy making things. And people's time and energy are valuable. People making things also need somewhere to sleep, stuff to eat, clothes to wear, education, and healthcare. Like people's time and energy, these cost money. So people need money for what they want and need, to pay those providing it so those people can get what they need. Take this apartment building. A lot of people around the world help others build apartments so other people can live in them. Today, all those people have to be paid. But the way we pay them doesn't consider decisions they might make which cause harm to people on the planet. In Copiosis, things work different. In Copiosis, an algorithm rewards people only for actions that benefit not only people, but also the planet. This algorithm...
Oh, the only algorithm.
Yeah, right.
The algorithm.
Like,
I mean,
I
you
get
mentioned
that.
this before, but people are doing like all the volunteer labor is to perfect the algorithm.
Right.
Okay. Anyway. Hey, it's
Yeah,
pyramids.
I don't know.
Pyramid scheme. Okay. Anyway, enough teasing.
Yeah,
It's
but
2
like,
minutes. It's definitely
All
going
right.
for
That
the
measures the
lowest
benefit
common
and
denominator.
harm human
I
decisions
believe.
create, rewarding only decisions that produce more benefit than
how,
harm.
they're not. I hope they explain how they decide what decisions are beneficial and which are not. I guess let's see.
Well,
For
let's say an
example,
ecological
someone who
value.
designs and builds an energy-efficient apartment building is rewarded more than someone who doesn't build one this way. If she also recycles her waste materials, she is rewarded even more. And that's how Copiosis can give apartments and all other necessities to a family at no cost to anyone. Our algorithm rewards people providing things, so families don't have to. That's better than giving things away for free. Finally, we don't need families living in apartments, or anyone else for that matter, paying people to get food, clothing, shelter, education, or healthcare. The Copiosis algorithm can pay them, and that's how Copiosis gives people all their necessities at no cost to anyone. Copiosis, a no-risk, no-tax, no-cost, free market, moneyless economy where everybody wins and nobody loses.
Okay.
Oh, and it's a .com.
The Copiosis algorithm rewards people NBR when their action creates more good than harm. An algorithm is just a math formula. How can a math formula decide which actions create more good than harm? Consider a hypothetical HIV cure created by this team of 6 researchers. The cure is being used all over the world. First, the algorithm asks what resources were used to make the cure and how plentiful and renewable is each resource. It then assigns a number to the answers. Next, it asks how many people are producing HIV cures and how many people want the cure. Then it assigns a number to that. Many people believe benefit is subjective, being different for different people. We agree. That's why the algorithm next asks patients how satisfied they are with the cure. It then uses the best science to see if the cure increases human well-being or decreases human well-being. Next, the algorithm asks how much of society the cure impacts, a small town or a massive segment of humanity. The algorithm then asks, does creating the cure harm or benefit the natural environment? Finally, the algorithm asks how the cure benefits humanity overall. Does it make humanity more or less resilient? The algorithm uses all these values to calculate a result. That number is the net benefit produced when people use this hypothetical HIV cure. This calculation happens over and over at many different levels of society simultaneously, so we can reward every person who helps make the cure. NBR is given only after these questions are answered, so there can be a delay before one's reward comes. That's why necessities are provided to everyone at no cost. But once the rewards start and as the benefits continue, people responsible for creating them continue receiving their NBR. So Copiosis creates passive income streams for anyone who makes people and the planet better off.
Passive
By asking
income.
8 questions.
Yeah, there's another red flag. Jeez.
So I think these are people and I'd have to talk to them or listen to their discussions first. Okay, so this
Right.
is just like this is the pre
Yeah.
suggestions.
It's the warm up. Yeah.
These are people who like Paracom but don't want to be socialist or called socialists. So like the fact that they say not this, no government, no taxes, free market, moneyless economy. They still want to be free market. They still want like the mechanisms of a free market and free enterprise, which is fine. Free enterprise is totally compatible with any other planned economy. And the prices in Paracom also assigned based on ecological and social merit are also basically like this algorithm. So the algorithm itself isn't the issue to me, actually. It's probably how Paracom would work too. They're just over explaining it, I think. They just say like, again, you have a standard for what's ecologically valuable, social value, and you assign prices. Actually, it could be simpler than that. You simply have prices based on supply, and people then make their production and consumption proposals based on those prices. That's where like the Austrian scroll kind of has a point where planning doesn't work because you still need a way, like the best way of making economic decisions is with prices. And of course, but what are the prices based on? Well, in capitalism, they're based on exchange value. What if they were based on ecological and social value? So you just make the prices based on that, as well as availability based on what you'd have to do to extract them, whether it be eggs or iron.
Gotcha.
So you put a really high price on metals and things like that. So you use wood. That would be more available. So but they're really like flattening it down and simplifying it for an audience that I'm not even quite sure who they're trying to ever make these videos for. And that's sort of like they did not think about who they made spiffy corporate videos. Who are they making them for? Seeing these, well, I had to go to their site to see these, for their own, I had to look them up. But I forget how I encountered them first. Maybe it was at Left Forum. I don't think so. Maybe I think I was just searching for economic models, and maybe from Paracom this was suggested. I don't know. It was so long ago. But yeah, so I'd be interested in talking. Like, why aren't you guys just Paracom boosters? This is obviously the same thing. It's just emphasize free market mechanisms or something, or taken out the Marxist analysis that leads to the balanced job complex. They're not mentioning how workplaces work. It's more like they're trying to whittle it down to basically say like, how can we simply take one piece of Paracom so that it can be integrated with everything else as it is? Because you don't want to disrupt too much, but you do want to appeal that people don't want to pay taxes. They want an economy where, has all these benefits. But again, where does the original value come from? And or something like that.
I'm still not quite sure what this value they're distributing even is, if it's not.
Oh yeah, the MBA, the MBR, yeah.
Yeah.
What's it for? And how is it like? You have a passive income
it?
Now. If you make something a benefit, that's like
income of what though? Like
yeah,
I don't know. A little confusing here, but let's continue on.
Our algorithm can measure and reward any human action based on the real effect the action has on people and the planet. And that's how the Copiosis algorithm works. Far better than paying people money. Copiosis, a no-risk, no-tax, no-cost, free market, moneyless economy where everybody wins and nobody loses.
I mean, it's probably a good tactic as far as like, what do people only care about making money, right? Even though the Co-op Jackson people kind of put it that way. We were able to do this community enterprise because we were able to pay people for their actual labor. I don't know how they were able to do it. Maybe they grew, maybe they did make some net profit and they were able to, basically put it back to the workers. But it sounds like they needed to pay them first to get things started, to clean up the park. And that's something why a lot of community groups and projects don't get started, because it's all supposed to be volunteer, even like either in perpetuity, which is impossible,
right?
You know, or only a lucky few actually get a salary by managing it, and then but everyone else stays a volunteer, and that's where it gets into trouble,
right?
And unsustainable, and it doesn't grow because everyone still needs a day job, a capitalist,
right?
Day job,
right. All right, here we go.
Rewards, or NBR, is what you get when your actions create more good than harm in copiosis. NBR comes from the copiosis algorithm. It replaces money in copiosis.
Okay.
Here's why NBR is way better. First, NBR is unlimited, so your reward is not limited by rewards others get. Second, your NBR is only good for luxuries. You get all your basic food, clothing, shelter, all your education, and all your healthcare at no cost to you or anyone else. So you don't need NBR to get what you really need to live. Third, NBR is non-transferable. When you use your NBR for a luxury watch, for example, the owner doesn't get your NBR. She gets her NBR from the copiosis algorithm, which measures the net benefit produced when you use her watch. The more net benefit her watches produce, the more NBR she gets. Your NBR is yours. No one can take it against your will. Fourth, you can never go into debt because you can't spend your NBR before you have it. Fifth, people get NBR only when they create more benefit than harm. With money, you can make people sick, murder, cheat, poach, sell drugs and weapons that destroy communities, and still get rich. Not with NBR. To get rich in copiosis, you do things in ways that produce more benefit than harm. That's easy because it doesn't cost anybody anything to do things. With NBR, copiosis creates equal opportunity for everyone to get rich. But to get rich, you have to do a lot of good for people and the planet. That's easy to do without money standing in the way. Copiosis, a no risk, no tax, no cost, free market, moneyless economy where everybody wins and nobody loses.
Okay. Starting to get a little better handle on what they're talking about. It kind of seems like there is money, despite it saying no money. It's just there's no money for necessities.
Yeah,
so
it's
you
abundant.
Get you get your little luxury tickets to buy your extra.
You have
this and that.
you have your anarcho-communist abundance economy, and then you have this more free market luxury economy on top of it. But the money is tied to use value.
Yeah,
not exchange value, which is a very Marxist thing. In fact, that's the whole point of Marxist economics, is to have an economics that's based on use value, not exchange value. At least that's something that was mentioned today in the conversation, in the Deprogram podcast.
Oh, cool. I like them a lot. That's a good
oh yeah, they're lots of fun. They were talking about, because they were talking to a Swede, so they were talking about alcohol and how Sweden has a public monopoly on alcohol and it makes it cheaper, except unless it's vodka, but they've got the vodka brand Absolute produced in Sweden.
I didn't realize.
So they're talking about the history of alcohol in Sweden, and it's and how, like, the alcohol can't be served or sold cold, which dissuades people from drinking it as soon as they buy it. Which actually, it doesn't seem like too bad a rule, actually.
Okay.
But when you're an alcoholic, you don't need it to be cold. You will drink it,
right?
when you
just
when you
shove
need
it in
it.
your face. Oh yeah.
Well, they don't shove. They nurse it. They nurse it. They make it last. They gotta make it last.
Some of them do. I mean, I worked with homeless people in Salt Lake City who were They were known as the mouthwash gang because their drink of choice was high alcohol mouthwash. Yeah. So they phenomenal breath, but
Jesus fucking Christ.
Other
Okay.
than that, yeah.
I didn't know you were being literal. I thought mouthwash was just like, it's
no,
always got liquid in their mouth.
Oh no. That was their drink of choice.
Jesus
I don't know
fucking
how
Christ.
you can down that much. I guess in that case, you got to down it as fast as you can, because that cannot be a pleasant feeling going down or coming back up. Like, ugh. Yeah.
Anyway,
Tough stuff.
the ones I worked with, maybe because they were a long time and they had stable housing, they would nurse their drinks. They would get their natty daddies, and they would like sip on them. But whatever.
Sure.
Unless they were depressed or some shock had hit them, then they would.
Yeah, then it's binge time.
And things would get dangerous.
Yeah, that sucks. All right. On that happy note, let's.
Was there how many more were there?
Let's see
How it works. Okay, we're at how it works, and then there's one more, right?
Yeah, before we get into like discussion stuff.
Yeah, or how necessities paid for. Well, again, they're not paid for if it's anarcho-communism, right? It's all
they're just
community planning, so to speak,
by the algorithm.
By the algorithm, yes, and that's where it gets a little like, oh, yeah, this isn't democratic anymore, okay? And that's where it's a red flag. Where it's like democracy isn't really the way you plan the economy. It's technology will, and that's
Right.
where it becomes a techno-utopian fix, techno fix.
Yeah.
And that's where you're in capitalist territory there.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, they are free market, so maybe they're okay with that.
Maybe they're not socialist. I mean,
Joe.
it's weird because the goal
This
is
is Joe.
communism. It's so weird. It's so weird. And there's a lot of hippies like this where, it was the South Park joke where the hippies are like coming to South Park and they're coming in droves and they start a jam band concert. It's satire of the core or whatever. But
Right.
hippie college students talking to Stan, and it's like, imagine, there's no money. You just had someone who like baked the bread and someone who looked out for people's safety. You mean a baker and a cop? No, man, you don't get it. You just said you got to go to college.
You gotta go to college, yeah. Yeah.
Joe's factory. It makes widgets for thousands of people worldwide. How does copiosis make Joe richer, his life easier, his family, factory workers, vendors, and suppliers all more prosperous, while simultaneously improving our environment? First, Joe gets everything the factory needs. Utilities, equipment, people, even the building, at no cost to anyone. Just like
And they're
the food Joe's
implying
family
that
eats
he's
and the health.
owning it and he
Yeah.
is in charge of it or something.
Yeah.
Is that because they're so like, I guess they have to appeal to the individuality, the individualism of people. So
Right.
it's like they're
You can
really,
still own stuff. Don't worry.
they're like they're trying to. This is sort of geared towards a mainstream audience, yet the goals and ideas they're anarcho-communist. It's so weird, but it's not anarcho because the
Yeah.
algorithm is an authority here, I
Right.
guess. But it's like,
Well,
there's no
also-
government. It's like a libertarian, the anarcho-libertarians, I guess, would
Ugh.
be, but they won't like this either because they want personal profit.
They want profit. Oh yes.
So I don't know who this would appeal to.
But right.
And it only appeals
I
to
mean,
me because it's like Paracom, but then there's the parts that aren't like Paracom. So
Yeah.
The
Well, in
algorithm,
the system, they said you just get workers. I mean, how are you getting workers? Are these volunteer workers? And why does Joe get?
why
to be
would they
an
do
owner,
this
but
work, right? They can do whatever they want that makes
Right.
value that earns them the PBR, right? So
Yeah.
the Pat's Blue. That's the secret. Everyone's paid in Pat's Blue Ribbon.
Oh man, count me out then.
I actually have one of those in my fridge because a friend of
Oh, I
mine
do not-
only
I
drinks
do not
that,
do
and
that.
he
I
brought
don't
one
know why,
over.
but yeah, yeah,
Smells gross
that's
to me.
kind of a big component here. They got to explain who
Hey,
decides who gets to
there's
do what.
still 2 minutes left. Okay.
There's still 2 minutes. Let's see if they can, clinch it in the end.
Care they enjoy. Take this dye machine, for example. It makes parts for Joe's widgets. Steve here makes the dye machine. While Steve voluntarily lets Joe use the machine, the all-volunteer Copiosis organization measures how much benefit Steve's machine produces for Joe. The Copiosis algorithm uses these measurements to reward Steve with NBR.
Why do you need Joe?
Steve's machines are in
What's
over
Joe
400
doing here?
factories worldwide.
Yeah.
If the organization is making the decisions as far as employment and payment, they are acting as the economic central authority here. Okay, the planning and what have you. It's
Right. Yeah. What are these owners doing?
Whether it be like Gazprom or the Chilean project, something sim, LibSim, whatever it was called. Cybersyn. It was called Cybersyn. Why is Joe there? What's Joe doing?
What good is he doing?
I mean, maybe it's assumed that he's the former owner, like he owned the factory and the new society, the new economy has been instituted. But guess what? That's not happening without struggle. And Joe isn't going to be part of that.
Maybe Joe just submitted his idea for a widget factory to the all-powerful algorithm, and it decided that
he's the idea
he should be
man.
Placed in charge. Yeah. Huh.
Job creator.
So he benefits lots of people.
There's no
That's
jobs
why he's
anymore.
rich,
It's all volunteer.
Like Joe. Everyone in Joe's operation is richly rewarded NBR the same way Steve is.
They're doing
How
work.
much NBR they get depends on the benefit they create. So Joe doesn't worry about paying for people, healthcare, maintaining equipment, or budgeting dollars that never go far enough. He doesn't worry about environmental laws either. Yet his factory is super efficient and environmentally friendly. It wasn't always that way. Equipment making Joe's factory environmentally friendly wasn't forced on him by a law, costing him an arm and a leg. Instead, consultants installed all this stuff at no cost to anyone and were rewarded NBRs the same way Steve is, because their actions benefit Joe's factory and the planet too. So Joe gets all this assistance and an environmentally friendly factory too, which makes his wife very happy. And when Joe's wife is happy, Joe's happy too. Copiosis. No risk, no tax, no cost.
What does Joe's wife do?
Good question.
She trophy wife or something? She's just like, oh, Joe, my husband owns a factory.
Oh man.
I knew this would be fun to cover. I know.
It definitely
Free market,
is
moneyless economy where everybody
Everyone
wins,
wins
and nobody loses.
Nobody loses.
So I'm definitely gonna watch. I guess I need to listen to some of their discussions.
Meet Joe. This
there
is
one
Joe's
more?
factory.
No,
It
this
makes
one's-
widgets for thousands of people worldwide.
It's just a different version of it. It seems.
Okay.
Okay, they're not that long, I guess. Open mark. Click the Zeitgeist movement one. That's right. These guys are
this is a
from Paracom.
Zeitgeist?
They're from Zeitgeist.
But I do need to characterize, because some of the folks that are here don't know what TZM is and what Z-Day is. And the Zeitgeist movement is an important organization because they are promoting a conversation that needs.
That's right. This is the Zeitgeist movement's economic model.
Gotcha.
Debt and money. And
I mean, one of a
those
few,
three
but
things
you know.
are depressing humanity.
Yeah, right.
And it feels like it's not. It feels like it's not happening because you're able to use money to get things that you want, including other human beings in terms of human relationships and stuff like that. But in reality, when you look at it, those three things are extremely oppressive to humanity. And what I'm going to share with you is a way to get out of that. But I want to just touch on the Zeitgeist movement because for a very long time now, they have painted or characterized a vision for what humanity could actually be on this planet if we're able to get off of those three things: debt, money, and government. And the challenge that I have with the Zeitgeist movement's approach is they have not yet characterized how to get from here to there. But I don't think that's a problem for the Zeitgeist movement because what I believe their mission is advocacy. It's getting people like you to think about this new vision so that someone in the world, maybe me, can come up with a way to get us from here to there. So what I'm going to propose to you today is a way to get us from what we have today to what the Zeitgeist movement proposes with this resource-based economy.
Now, I'm going to admit, when I was putting together my Paracom presentation and studying it, and, you know, I wasn't the first to do this, by the way. There were other occupiers talking about Paracom. I did so with basically the same introduction. You know, the Occupy movement is about challenging people to think beyond capitalism or think beyond our debt cycle and boom and bust cycle, and take a look at the inequality of things. Of course, how outrageous it is, how outraged we are, and that we are not alone. So we can build class consciousness. But what do we do? What kind of movement do we build? We should have an economic vision, something that's utopian, but obviously something practical that can integrate with all the community projects we already have, like the solidarity economy is real, it exists. What can the solidarity economy grow into eventually? You know, is it meant to? It's not fated, nothing's fated, but will it become some syndicalism kind of scheme? Will it, could it be organized with economic planning that's based in computing? And thus it can go beyond what the syndicalism of the interwar period could do, because that wasn't that they were in a war economy. Of course, you always plan your economy when it's war economy, but that was the original idea behind planning that was talked about in the program. So I do recommend that episode that I listened to today. They just dropped it pretty much, where the original theorist behind economic planning was a guy involved in Austro-Hungary's war economy planning. And because you don't win a war with money, you win a war with bullets, bombs, and bread. Could we do this, but for and it was all very much planned and nationalized. The war industry or the industries needed for the war effort. Could we do this for peacetime ends? And the most radical New Dealers in America were thinking the same way. Could we take the military-industrial complex, or the way we organized the economy during the war, with price fixing and with the nationalization and the conservation corps and everything, and the way we had nationalized industries, and turn it towards peaceful ends? And that did not happen, because as soon as the war ended, I guess Cap came back with a vengeance and smashed any hope of that happening, with fear of the communists, I guess, and what have you. Or perhaps people did not enjoy how things worked in America at the time because of rationing and the limits of supply, and people were associating those times of hard times and not how good things could be, because things were getting better, in that next decade. So hard to know. I'm sure there's other people, historians, that could talk more about how things didn't, how the New Deal faltered, but right. I know there's conversations where about the New Deal coalition was coming apart even as soon as the war ended. It didn't come apart in the 70s. I mean, that was when it was killed, died, really broke apart, but it was already breaking apart then, between radical unionists and non-radical unionists. And I think that was maybe the difference. Sure. Radical unionists that basically saw their mission as complete at that point. Everyone's getting better wages and weekends.
Work here is done.
And unions got you the weekend.
What more can you ask for?
They always fought for more, of course, but
right.
But on the terms of the managers.
Thrust is done.
But with the management, because to be radical is to be demonized in the press. The capitalist private sector press would demonize any leftist movement, or leftist activism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm not able to find that video on TikTok, but it's basically a really funny thing where someone's telling a story about how there's this hippie girl living in their co-op house, and she wasn't contributing anything, but she had her own school bus that she had not retrofitted it all. And so she was like the most narcissistic and lazy kind of hippie. And when she was going to give back, she would always talk about how she's giving back to people and whatever. So she gave back to the house it was like she was challenged, like, hey, you stay here, you hang out in the house all the time. Can you just do something for the house? She made a big pot of beans.
Ooh, well, that's really something.
She didn't season the beans. She didn't cook anything with the beans. It was just beans.
Just the beans. It's your freaking beans.
So no one wanted to eat them. And but she didn't clean up. Oh yeah, and she expected everyone else to clean up. And when people did not want to help her clean up because she barely put any effort in the cooking, she just took the pot and put it on the fridge, where the beans then went bad. I wish I could find this. God damn it. Hippie. Maybe I misspelled. I misspelled girl, so. Hippie girl. Beans. Not finding it. No, I'm doing a search and it's only counts.
Yeah.
How do you do a search for a video topic?
Video topic, you can probably.
Oh, okay, there we go. Never mind. I need to log in and search. Well, I do have an account, but I don't think I've. Jesus Christ.
You have no idea who shared this?
It was it was just shared with me in person. All right, forget it. Let's see what else we got. Whoops. I don't think we have anything for 20 minutes, but let's see. Oh yeah, how about a video about Roseanne Barr's new stand-up show? I've got things to say about Roseanne Barr. Okay, so we covered copenosis. There's the 10-minute video from another Zeitgeister about transitioning to a resource-based economy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll share that with you.
Okay.
And we could kind of get started on that. We could skip it in a few minutes because he's just introducing himself.
Sure.
So it's been a while since we covered Venus Project, but obviously Copnosis and Zeitgeist kind of integrate with that. This is their other meta vision. I can say, what's our vision for the future? What would our ideal society, be like? And they point to Fresco and the Venus Project, which is, I guess, a co-op, an eco village. But yeah, and they do have some projects on the ground, but where they're trying to do. But I guess because it's all volunteer, I guess maybe it's slow going. Again, I'd have to actually interview a Zeitgeist person, Venus Project person, and really ask them for the deeds, for the details. So I put it in the chat.
Okay. Bring it up in a second here.
Oh yeah, they say industrial Funko Pop production in the title of the deprogram episode. I was like 85% through the episode. They hadn't mentioned Funko Pops yet, so that's just the name.
I think that's just
it's
the clickbait joke.
Yeah, it's just a name. It's not like they talk about Funko Pops, because there had been a story about how they had overproduced Funko Pops. And they were throwing a shitload of them.
They were
out.
destroying them. Yeah. I heard
because
they
they thought the like Pogs, it would growth of sales would be exponential, and of course they weren't. So
Dan Azin was born in the Republic of Moldavia in 1978. He graduated from Moldova State University in 2000 with specialization in law. He immigrated to the United States in 2007. At this time, he is pursuing a nursing degree at IRSC. He has been a volunteer for the Venus Project since 2011.
As you can see from our presentations, the Venus Project include
2 minutes.
detailed approach to a variety of topics. To better global civilization can only be achieved by evolution, not by force. By producing solutions which will demonstrate that greater personal and national security goals can be achieved without use of military force, we will create enough pressure to initiate transition from fictitious economies
do
of
the
boom and
ends
bust.
justify being mean?
Justify being mean.
That's from Chopko 6, by the way. I want that audio, but apparently in the local files, the audio isn't there.
What?
I'm not sure. Like, I need to look harder, maybe, but in the media content, it's just I think, I don't know, maybe it's all through Steam or something, but it is installed, so it's odd. But it's not on YouTube or anywhere else, so
really,
like clips of the video or something. I've typed it in. I've done searches.
To sustainable, inflexible processes based on dynamic equilibrium. In other words, we must make this system subside under weights of its own insufficiencies. At present, it seems that we're unable to achieve any real progress. No matter what aspiration and progressive ideas some individuals might have, most of the people cling to habitually comforting way of thinking that failed to produce long-term solutions humanity required to evolve. What we need is an alternative vision, alternative goals, and alternative environment to induce and solidify individual and social change. The Venus Project can provide all of these alternatives, and we are ready to lead civilization into a new era of human evolution. Our goal is to take every step possible to make transition to resource-based economy with minimum amount of social isolations that mean without deprivation, hunger, war, suspension of human rights, and international conflicts. Right now, we're working to present the Venus Project direction to international community. We have many groups and individual volunteers around the world who helping us with these tasks. Our message is very well received across the cultures. We're certain that millions in many countries are aware of our direction, and many will join in us as soon as we start implementation of the next phase of the Venus Project. So our next step is when we implement resource-based economy. It's going to be fully sustainable, practically pollution-free system with its own energy and food production, transportation, and other services available without use of money within the city. New environment of social and personal organization will induce change in values of city inhabitants, providing behavioral modification needed to create society of the future.
I don't like that language.
The main goal at this...
that language.
Which part?
The whole, like, you know, well, first, it's part of social movement ideology, liberalism, or whatever, that, like, you know, we just need a mind shift. You know, people need to change, and then everything else will follow. But then there's also the social constructivism there, too, of once people are in the new model, their values will change and behavior will be modified, which is kind of creepy when you talk about people like that.
Yeah. I think it is better the way that leftists say that, like, if there's no, you know, deprivation of any resources, there's much less reason to steal and be nasty to one another and do drugs and so on and so forth. So, but the idea that, that your behavior will be changed because of this.
We're talking about populations in this abstract way because guess what? You're all nerds that don't have a movement yet. I mean, you have a movement, but it's all very fringe and small, and you're not talking to like hundreds of people at a time. So, especially not working class people. So you're kind of talking about people in an abstract way, is what I mean. It's kind of abstracted.
Yeah.
Stage of operation is creation of the international network of educational and research centers without vested interest in monetary system. Research projects going to be focused on development of fully automated mining to product to recycling system, creation of advancement in behavioral technology and behavioral science, social and economical studies, social cybernetization, and integrated renewable energy systems, along with other areas that allow us to create economy of abundance. Any country will greatly benefit from investment into new city system designed by the Venus Project. They will spur growth of the new class of socially integrated industries, attracting variety of specialists in sustainable technologies, social entrepreneurs.
This is where he needs to slow down, because this is where he's actually describing the plan, but he's talking so fast that I've watched this a few times.
Sure.
But I think he's saying is, okay, we have a foundation that a nonprofit foundation that develops the technologies and techniques for an abundance economy. And the abundance economy is so good, we'll get other outside investors, I guess, but maybe investors, just anyone who donates to the foundation, like a Bill Gates, let's say. And then the next step after this is then they build a model city with that. So anyway, let's continue.
Sure. Yeah, I must say he's not the most engaging speaker I've seen.
So. None of them are. I mean, they don't got the riz, as the kids say.
Riz, oh my god.
I've been hearing the last 2 weeks. I've just been hearing riz used.
That term has just blown up lately. I think Hassan has started using it a lot more on his stream. That's probably why it's floating around.
Not just
the
him.
leftist sphere. No, not just. Oh, of course, not just him, but yeah.
Tourists from all around the world. In the same time, increasing energy production, energy independence, social stability, as well as lessen regional budget demands. Our approach can be easily scalable to include multiple regions and even whole countries in order to create large-scale sustainable systems. Specialists will work with local governments to advance and streamline processes initiated by a network of experimental cities, applying best of our findings to improve quality of life of every citizen of the host country without involvement into local political process. It is very important that major portion of the funding for the first experimental cities will be provided by general public, not by corporations or other profit-seeking entities. That way, nobody could buy its way into the city. And we could keep it clean from self-centered ideations imposed by monetary system.
I know we're running out of time, but I did ask this in the comments, by the way, so we can end by going to the comment section and looking at my comment and how they responded to it, which wasn't so bad.
There's Lefty Platt.
That's me.
That's you.
But anyway, saying that we're not going to be involved in local politics, or we got to be separate, but then it's also going to be funded by the local government, or the host country, I guess. So maybe he's referring, he's not being specific. I guess he's saying we're going to have a country fund this as investment, because we're going to be this, in the same way that, like, say, a sheikh, the prince of Saudi Arabia wants to build his own model city of the future. I think they kind of want that, instead of the line, build a RBG city, but I don't know, without being specific, it just sounds like there's contradictions.
Yeah.
But let's see, I wrote better than other videos because it's 10 minutes long. It's better than the video we watched together in the previous stream. Well, compared to the previous stream, he's way more specific. But it still lacks how the first city will be built / funded and organized in accordance with these values. A few nice millionaires, maybe, surely this movement has some of those by now, it's because they've been talking internationally and all that stuff. If not a few nice millionaires, then who and how? And what of government taxes and market demands? A special economic zone just for a new city? Because, I'm also critiquing the whole, we got to build a new city from scratch. That's also the shit of techno-utopian billionaires. Or capitalists. So a special economic zone just for a new city. Gotta build it in Saudi Arabia with slave labor with a prince on board. Those being
right.
So they respond. The channel, I suppose. From what I understand, once TVP has enough awareness, the Venus Project has enough
Yeah, right.
awareness. Okay, I don't like that word, but awareness is also like a social movement. We're not here to change material conditions. We're here to build awareness.
Change
kind of
mindset only.
from resource wealthy individuals or nations, the opportunity to build the first test city campus or a campus of structures, an eco-village, will arise. It's not money we need. It is resources and human power. Okay, but in a capitalist global economy, how do you get resources? Obviously, Co-op Jackson has said, we'll use a shitload of salvage. Okay, but surely after a decade of the zeitgeist movement, you could get people together to start salvaging and building an eco-village. Maybe that's what the Venus Project has been doing all this time in Florida, but they don't make videos about how the Venus Project works or what they're doing. I've only seen just a few people just being given a tour, which doesn't tell me anything, except that they're an eco-village. So activists since the 60s speak of raising... Oh, no, sorry, that's my response. So until then, the current transcribing as integrated aquaponics system projects remain underway as a Venus Project volunteer. So, they're doing some aquaponics. They're building that system, abundance generating economics, right? You get more out than you put in, more or less. So I say thanks for the reply because I was being, a jerk, or rather I was being teasing. I don't mean any snark on you guys as the man doing non-capitalist projects myself, but I'm just working to understand the pitch, which they're always giving a pitch, but not showing the practice. Activists since the 60s speak of raising awareness, but struggle with content with how most resources
probably contend is what you meant. Yeah,
maybe with the economy we are looking to subvert. Is there a good video showing off these projects you mentioned, and so on? It says all good. At the moment, we lack the public relations procedure to show the world what we are doing. So for security reasons, what does that mean, public relations procedure? To me, it is sometimes frustrating to see our speed of evolution. So obviously they're all volunteer. Their progress is very, very slow. However, after many more hours of going over Venus Project material, I've realized it is my expectation, not reality, that is the problem. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't respond to that, actually. I don't know why. But it's also a very new age, hipster, new ager thing to also say, like, dude, it's not about the problem isn't you lack resources. It's not that, it's not, you just gotta, your expectations. It's a Buddhist philosophy, I guess, that pain and suffering come from expectations, right? If the poor didn't expect to have housing, they wouldn't suffer when they're homeless or something like that. But no Buddhist actually says that, of course. That's not what's really meant.
Right.
But it's like we're expecting this to take decades. But at the same time, the climate change clock is ticking and we shouldn't take decades, or we should know that it will take this long and no longer. Or I don't know. So I guess the challenge here is they should have a public relations procedure. So I guess this is saying we don't actually have a PR committee. We simply have the committee that organizes the conferences where we record people giving talks and pitches there. And that's our media. We don't have media where we make, like, say what Co-op Jackson showed us. They made a very informative mini doc that then can go on Means TV. It can be shown. It was entertaining because they were, people were talking about what they were doing. They were showing what they were doing. They were being pretty practical about it and incorporating this and that leftist theory.
Sure.
So, Co-op Jackson, yay, zeitgeist movement,
do better. Yeah.
Do better. Yes. Do better. As we all must.
Absolutely.
Work to do better.
Yeah. I do appreciate that they are trying to get beyond capitalism, and they do seem to have a lot of volunteers. I've met quite a few of them, just being online for a while. So
You're talking about Zeitgeist movement or co-op
Zeitgeist movement? Yeah, Zeitgeist movement.
Again, they are still very online, so they are available and accessible when you're in online spaces. Co-op Jackson's the opposite. They're local. They're Jackson, Mississippi, but they're actually building shit. They're talking about a model city that it's just not going to happen. I don't think, unless that's why I was mentioning, unless you get a, and this is a libertarian, anarcho-libertarian pitch to have a free trade zone like within a country where, you know, like Hong Kong acts like it's like you need a city state where all of the innovation and commerce happens, and it'll make everyone rich. Everyone who's in there will be rich, and that will be trickled down to the country, you know? Which of course is bullshit. Which is why he's proposing it. But I'm saying like this is what it sounds like to me when you talk about one model city that's then going to spread out and make a network of these cities. It's very optimistic.
It does. It seems like quite the Hail Mary that they're hoping for, like some sort of Peter Thiel figure, except for not a right-wing libertarian jackass, but you know, someone that actually agrees with them coming in and trying to actually make it happen.
But in the 10 minutes, he says they are very specific about how they do not want to do that. They want to be completely independent of debt and money and all that. So they're kind of left with volunteer labor. They need some kind of credit system, maybe a PBR. Made by an algorithm. They are about planning an economy with algorithms. So maybe they need. Oh, again, Copnosis is an outgrowth of Zeitgeist too. That's
right.
That makes sense. So they need to start putting that practice. And I guess the Copnosis organization maybe is an outgrowth. But again, how many people are really in it? And if they're all spread out, then they're not going to be able to build a real business or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, it sucks. But Co-op Jackson has chosen to have a plan that's based in a local economy. And maybe that's how we need to be doing that. And we do that with chapters.
I think it is how we need to do
that with
it.
IWW chapters because they're already existing in other places. It's already a network that's international. Yeah. But the issue is that with, like, say, the union I'm in, and I'm now a treasurer of a local, is there's so many layers that the AFL-CIO is part of an international union. And so,
I didn't even know.
So there's my union local that's part of a statewide union, which is then part of the AFL-CIO nationally. Everybody gets a cut. So the local we're actually like capped at receiving no more than 30% of the dues that are paid. So it's just enough money to basically have parties and have the leadership go to conferences, but and maybe a few grand left over for gifts. But we're also, because of a supreme, I just learned this last week. I'll wrap up with this. We're out of time, but I learned that there's a Supreme Court in the 50s or something that said basically, or maybe it was that. You know, dues cannot be used for, you know, gifts because that's favoritism. There's corruption. You had someone who wanted a refund for their dues. And so the deal with Orr was made that there's a cap on what locals can actually spend of dues. That way, if the people demand a refund, they can be compensated. They can get their dues back. Now, this was thrown out with Janus because now dues aren't compulsory. So Janus made this obsolete, but I guess it was decided that we're going to keep the rule of the 30% because it cuts down on the corruption anyway. The whole point was there was misspending happening, you know. And I can imagine how it happens because it still happens.
Sure.
That's why, like, you're only allowed to use checks. And maybe credit card, but under
has to
like
be a paper trail. Yeah.
But there has to be a paper trail of the credit card. Any local that was using a debit card, it was always used for some embezzling. You know, happening. Because the debit cards would be issued to everyone on the bank account, which meant every officer would get one. and so one person can spend without telling the others.
Gotcha.
That's what would happen.
Yep.
With a check, the president and the treasurer or vice president
Someone's
has
got
to
to actually
sign
sign up.
it. Two people have to sign it.
Okay.
Okay, then. Good night. It was great to join you once again. Another 2 weeks. I'll see what I can find. I don't know what we're gonna hop to next, but
Sure.
I'll maybe I'll listen to the Copnosis people. And,
Sure. I saw a video come up in the recommendeds there from this moneyless society, and they're talking about a resource-based economy as well.
Oh yeah,
So-
no. I checked their channel out a month or so ago when we started these streams, and they just do discussions, so they don't have any short reviewable videos. The Moneyless Economy channel isn't pitching their own thing; they're just talking to all these different zeitgeist people and their ideas. So they're an idea discussion channel. They're a discussion channel. Which isn't so bad, but they're kind of hippie rants sometimes, and they're not really. They need to read some Marx because none of them have read Marx. And I think that's a problem. But or any Marxist, by the way, not just Marx himself, just a Marxian economist like Wolf.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
But maybe they've talked to Richard Wolf. I don't know. Anyway.
All right. Anyway, thank you so much. Fun time as always, and see you in a couple weeks. Did you want to shout out anything with the Three Lefts or anything else going on in your world or before you go?
Just a reminder that the 3lefts.news website has the full archive of 146 episodes of the Three Left Show, 2-hour leftist theory and practice podcast, if you want to hear my voice even more. Some of them I interview people, but not too many, or I have a co-host. I tried to have a co-host a few times, but no one ever stuck around. Sad. I'm gonna try to do that again. Maybe now that I have a 1-hour show and it's just local news, maybe I can try to get somebody, a local comrade, to join me. Not I don't want to be too optimistic, but anyway, it would make it a lot easier. I'm not doing with Lesson Albany that much because of my treasurer role for the next month or so. I'm kind of on a hiatus. I'm lucky if I do an episode a month. I did one last month. I did one for February. I did one in January. I'm basically hitting like 1 or 2 a month if I'm lucky. But it's just I don't know. I'm just overwhelmed, I guess, between kind of my taxes this week or something, and I'm sending. I'm trying to get recruited for a higher grade in the civil service. So there's all these Canvas letters I have to reply to. I'm skiing tomorrow, so I'm hitting the slopes.
Hey, have fun.
And yeah, it's so anyway, the show's a bit slowing down, but it's also because I'm trying to train people and meet people at the radio station. It looks like we'll have there's someone who has been doing a metal show. She went on hiatus and she moved to Albany from Kingston. So she's going to join the station. That's cool. Because at the moment she's commuting down to do her show in Kingston, which is a bitch. So she's happy to join us, and so try to get some of the other newbies, which is more of a challenge because they really need to be contacted regularly, and I'm just not so good at that. And just work is bucking me out because my coworker is getting foot surgery or has gotten it, and he's recovering. Stuff like that. And I need to cut down on the carbs, so I'm getting I'm getting a bit more cranky because I'm not eating muffins all the time.
You're not getting into keto, are you?
No, just thinking about trying to be like, okay, let's only eat pasta once, not times.
I hear that.
That's most of when I make stuff for myself. But when I make stuff that isn't pasta or bread, it's less filling, or it doesn't fill me as long, and then I feel hungry more often. But maybe that's just the feeling of maybe possible weight loss. I don't know, but I don't think. I just wouldn't have. Well, it's just been 1 week, and I need to exercise more anyway. But again, I literally took naps over the weekend. I felt so sleep deprived for a bit.
I hear you.
So I'm not working out. It sucks.
All right. Well, good luck with all that, man. You got a lot on your plate. So, all right. Yeah. Thanks again, and I will see you in a couple weeks. Have a good one.
Toodles.
All right. So yeah, head over to 3lefts.news. Check out all the stuff that Dan has going on. Let's see. Not too many people on right now, so we'll just do a shout out rather than a raid. See who's on that I think y'all would be interested in. Let's see. Ooh, this is an interesting one. This is not a political channel, but it's quite weird. A friend of mine on Facebook recommended it. It's called How It Is Manifested. It is a completely AI generated show where the audience will give it prompts, and then it will create pictures and words to go with the prompt, and it kind of behaves like it's a nature documentary channel or a history channel sort of thing. So it'll come up with this stuff. Anyway, you really just got to see it. It's bizarre. It's an interesting use of new tech. So that'll be my shout out for the night. Go check out how is it manifested, not how it is. How is it manifested on Twitch there. All right. I will see you all again on probably Sunday will be the next stream. Until that time, take care of yourselves. And yeah, just have a good night.